class today. Brajesh, are you ready? Okay.
Sure, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, can you hear me? Probably, because I'm in a different place.
Yeah, just a second, just a second. Yeah, you're in a different location, looks like. Good.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you for the opportunity. So the verse is Canto 1, Chapter 12, verse 11. So just read out the translation. So while thus being observed by the child, the Supreme Lord, Personality of Godhead, the Supersoul of everyone and the Protector of the righteous, at once disappeared, although he is dressed by all directions and is unlimited by time and space. So the theme for today is around the whole aspect of Jiva Tattva versus Vishnu Tattva or Krishna Tattva. So in the purport, we can see that Srila Prabhupada actually emphasizes this difference between the Jiva and the Lord Sri Krishna. And before we actually go into the tattvas itself, I think it would be nice to just understand this from the perspective of the different energies of the Lord. So in Vishnu Puran, there's a very nice verse that talks about the energies of the Lord. Ekadasha sitasyagne jyotsna vistarani yatha prasya brahmana shakti state dhammakilam jagat. Whatever we see in this world is simply an expansion of different energies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is exactly like a fire that spreads illumination for a long distance, although it is situated in one place. So from this, we can relate it back to Krishna and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who's in the spiritual world, enjoying his transcendental pastimes with the Gopas, the Gopis, Nand Maharaj, Yashoda Maya. But just like a fire whose influence and presence is spread for a long distance, Krishna's influence and presence is also spread everywhere. And it's described that his presence is even experienced within each and every atom of the material world. So everywhere we look, we can see that there's Krishna's energy. In chapter 7 of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna describes two of his energies. One is material nature, and the second is what he describes as a superior energy comprising the living entities. Param Jiva Bhutam. The living entities and material nature are both described as sister energies of the Lord because they're both described as Prakriti or feminine. But what makes the living entity a superior energy is the presence of something like consciousness and eternality. We're sentient beings, so we can think, we can feel, we can well desire all these different things that the material energy cannot do. If we take the example of like this bottle, I don't know if you can see this bottle, then the bottle can't move, the bottle can't think. It can only move because a sentient being, like I'm holding the bottle, I'm moving it. That's why it can move and think. But if we relate it back in relation to us as the Jiva to Vishnu or Krishna, then we're still considered to be inferior in relationship. Another definition of Prakriti is that which is enjoyed. So the Jiva being enjoyed, but Krishna is described as Purusha, which means the enjoyer. And that's the actual absolute relationship between the Jiva and Krishna. We're enjoyed and Krishna is the enjoyer. Jiva Tattva Shakti, Krishna Tattva Shakti Man, Gita Vishnu Puranadi Tahete Praman. Jiva Tattva Shakti, what's the truth of the living entity? Jiva Tattva Shakti, we're the energy. Krishna Tattva Shakti Man, and what's the truth of Krishna? The truth of the absolute truth. Shaktiman, he's the energetic, he's the possessor of the energy. But who's saying this? This is coming from Gita Vishnu Puranadi Tahete Praman. The evidence, the Praman is coming from scriptures like the Gita, the Vishnu Puran, and other Puranas. So we can see that through the relationship between any sort of energy and energetic, the Jiva is subordinate to Krishna just as the energy is subordinate to the energetic. But more specifically, the living entity is considered a part and parcel of the Lord. And this is the actual difference between the Vishnu Tattva and Jiva Tattva. So with Vishnu Tattva, expansions like Ram or Nrsimhadev, etc., they're considered as plenary or absolute expansions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And what that means is that they're actually as good as the Supreme Lord. Qualitatively and quantitatively, they're equal. But on the other hand, if we look at Jiva Tattva, we're still expansions of the Lord, but we're parts and parcels, which means that even though qualitatively we're the same, so we have the same nature, the same qualities, the same features, tendencies, desires, all these different things as the Lord. But what's different is that we have a very minute quantity. So the degree by which we can enjoy independently, or the degree by which we possess these qualities that I described, is very small in comparison. And this simultaneous equality with and difference from the Lord of the Jiva comes under something called Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva philosophy. So that's the simultaneous equalness, oneness, and difference from each other. So the Jiva is one in quality, but different in quantity with the Supreme Absolute Truth. And there's another very nice verse in Canto 6 of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Esha nitya vyaya sukshma, esha sarvashraya svatrik, atmanaya atmamaya guner vishvam, atma nam srijate prabhu. So from this verse, we can see that even though we have the same qualities of the Lord, like nitya being eternal or avyaya being imperishable, we're actually sukshma, and sukshma means we're very small, and especially in relation to the Lord, who's the greatest. We're very, very small. In the Upanishads, it's actually described that the size of the living entity is 1/10,000th the size of the tip of a hair. So whereas the Supreme Lord is considered the all-pervasive, we're very minute in comparison. And along with being relatively small, the other thing about the Jiva is that we're prone to be covered by Maya. And because of this influence of Maya, we start to consider ourselves to be the master, the Atmanam Srijate Prabhu. And it's actually this desire of ours, this desire to come to the material world and experience what it's like to be a master, to enjoy independently of Krishna, that we become conditioned and covered by the Supreme Lord's illusory energy. And that's, very prominent for those who are engaged in materialistic life. And the problem is that due to our conditioning, due to our ignorance of this fact, we start to accept this body, this material body of ours, to be ourselves, even though factually we're the spirit soul, we're different from the body. And we can see this by the fact that we're so attached to the body that we start to consider the body to be us, even though we're different from the body. We're situated inside the body, but we're different from it. It's just like a householder who's very attached to the house. Factually, the householder is different from the house, even though situated inside. But because of his own sense of false identity, he starts considering the house to be himself, starts associating very much with the house. If something goes on with the house, he very much feels, this is affecting me. The body, this material body of ours, is created by a combination of material nature, which is the material energy of the Lord, which, as we said before, is a sister energy of the Jiva. But with time, the material body vanquishes. But because we are not the material energy with the Jiva energy, we actually have nothing to do with the cycle of creation and dissolution of the body. Na jayate mriyate vakadachin. For the soul, there's neither birth nor death at any time. And even though we're complete wholes as living entities, our completeness can only come when we realize it in relationship to the complete whole, to Krishna. So the question is, well, what sort of relationship is that? Jivare Svarupa Hoya Krishna Nityadas. The eternal relationship of ours with Krishna is to be Krishna Nityadas, the eternal servant of Krishna. So we can experience and realize our completeness with the Supreme Absolute through that relationship. And an analogy is given whereby we can consider the body, the way the body functions. All the different parts of the limbs and everything else has to work cooperatively to actually function. They have to work cooperatively to provide food to the stomach. Now, if my fingers decide, oh, you know what? The stomach's not doing anything. I'm doing all the cutting of the vegetables. I'm doing the cooking. I'm doing the feeding. What is the stomach doing? The stomach's doing nothing. It's just enjoying. No, I'm not going to feed the stomach. I'm going to enjoy. The fingers are deciding that they're going to enjoy. So what they're going to do? Okay, for a bit, they'll play with the food like how children play with food. They'll play for a bit. But because the food's not going inside the stomach, the body's not getting nourished. The limbs are not getting nourished. The fingers aren't being nourished. So over time, the fingers will start being weak. And that's the state of the jiva as well. When the jiva is not serving Krishna, when we're not dovetailing our activities to Krishna, then we're just like the fingers who are trying to enjoy independently of the stomach. So this is the art of dovetailing our activities to Krishna, which is the practice of bhakti yoga, right? We might think, oh, why should I serve Krishna? What is Krishna doing for me? Let me serve myself. Let me serve my senses. Let me be happy. But all we're doing is going through and experiencing the karmic reactions. And even though we seem to be disconnected from the Lord, just as the fingers and stomach seem to be disconnected, we're actually very intimately related, because it's only through feeding the stomach, feeding the source, Krishna, that where we get the nourishment, the strength, the energy from. So then how do we dovetail our activities in the service of the Lord? How can we realize that intimate relationship we have with him? For this, we can take inspiration from many different personalities in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And one that comes to mind is Maharaj Ambarish, who engaged all his limbs, his senses, his mind, his desires in the service of the Lord and the devotees. There was never a moment where he wasn't thinking about or performing some sort of devotional activity with something or another. So in the same way, we can check in with ourselves. When I'm doing this activity, when I'm engaging in this sort of, if I'm engaging with these sorts of people, am I using my limbs, my senses, and my mind? Am I using each moment in the service of Krishna? Or am I using it for myself, for my own enjoyment? And this is the art of dovetailing. It's being conscious about what we're doing, when we're doing, how we're doing it, and for whom we're doing it. So if we can take the example of Maharaj Ambarish and similar personalities, if we can follow in their footsteps, we can then perform and dovetail our activities to serve Krishna and perfect our lives.
Okay, time is up. Thank you, Prabhu. Questions for Brajesh Prabhu? Okay, Jagannath Pandit Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for this enlightenment class. So I just have in a journal query, like many times we listen about this thing, we are not this body, we are soul. So the ignorance goes for a while, like just like you have shared now. So it has gone like, I am not this body, I am soul, and I am eternal servant of Krishna. But how we can practice on a daily basis so that we can remain in this consciousness?
Thank you for the question, Prabhu. It's a very valid point. I myself, I'm trying to, figure that out and follow the process. But one thing that I understand about this is that we have been given a process. We've been given a process of sadhana, service, from our acharyas, from Srila Prabhupada. And we might not realize, we might not be Krishna conscious at every moment because we haven't got the purity within us to do that. But by following the process, by following our sadhana strictly, by being diligent, then we can come to an understanding for the time. It's from the Shikshastra, the whole Cheto Darpana Marjanam, by cleansing, by purifying the heart, we can come to that understanding and that realization. So it's a process that we have to follow, and it takes time. It's not a one-hit wonder. You apply for the lottery one day and you become a millionaire overnight. It's not one of those things. It takes time. It's a process, and what we can do is follow the process sincerely and seriously.
Okay.
Thank you, Prabhu.
So thank you, Brajesh, for the answer. I'd like to add something to this. So when it is dark, in the night, absolutely dark, then we cannot see anything. We cannot see even ourselves, right? If you go in a dark room, then we cannot see anything was there, and at the same time we cannot see ourselves as well. But as soon as the light is turned on, we can see it. We can see everything as well as ourselves. So we have to try to become more and more Krishna conscious, and try to hear more about his name, fame, activities, pastimes from Srimad Bhagavatam and other scriptures. And as we advance and become more concentrated in that efforts of ours, then that naturally will be always in a conscious state that we are not this body, and we are not. So we are soul. We are not spirit. So we are not this body. It will come out naturally. So if we understand, if we try to realize Krishna, then we will naturally become selfless. So that's what Acharya has been presenting. Any other questions? Yes, Harsh, question, Apna Prabhu. Go ahead. Yeah.
First of all, thank you for the nice presentation. My question is,
can you be loud, Harsh Prabhu? Can you just be loud and clear?
Yes, am I audible?
Yes.
Prabhuji, my question is that as we all have heard many times that part and parcel of Krishna, and he were in the eternal abode of Lord Sri Krishna. So when we are serving the Krishna and we were satisfied there in serving Krishna, then why desire came into our mind to independently enjoy and separately from Krishna, and why we came into this material world? Because this doubt came many times in my mind. So and Krishna also says in Bhagavad Gita, the one who reaches in my abode will never come to this material world. So I want to know why we came.
Go ahead.
Thank you, question, Prabhu.
Thank you very much. If you want, I can pause the recording. Okay.
So, yeah, please do pitch in afterwards, Prabhu. But my understanding of this, Harsh Prabhu, and thank you for the question. So just to kind of make sure I understood the question properly, it's more about why did we come down in the first place if we were, up there in the spiritual world and serving Krishna? The thing is that because we're independent of Krishna, we have a choice, right? We always have a choice. If you look at any relationship, there's if we take the relationship of a servant, there's a relationship, and there's the master. But with Krishna, the servant has a choice of serving Krishna or not serving Krishna. Now, we can say that we're happy serving Krishna, and we are. We're all in Krishna consciousness, that's why, because we're enjoying the process. But equally, we still have a choice to decide, okay, do we want to serve Krishna or do we not want to? And that's actually part of a loving exchange as well, whereby we're choosing to associate with Krishna, we're choosing to express with Krishna. But at some point, it's described by the Acharyas that we decided that we wanted to experience life away from Krishna. We wanted to experience what it's like being away. And Krishna is so kind and merciful that he gives us the facilities to do that. But he also makes this promise that you'll come back, right? You're leaving me for now, but you'll come back soon, right? And so Krishna has facilitated our desire to enjoy away from Krishna with the hope and desire that we'll come back to him very quickly. So when we come to the material world, we come wanting to experience life away from Krishna. But then we get so sucked up in the enjoyment of this world that we forget Krishna. So Krishna is in the supreme abode wanting us back, but we're in the material world enjoying material nature. And because we've been conditioned for so many lifetimes to enjoy in that way, even in this lifetime, even when we've come to Krishna consciousness, our tendencies from many lifetimes don't let go because they're imprinted on us. So I know Brajendra Prabhu has been laughing, so it would be nice to get your answer at this as well.
Yeah. Thank you, Brajesh Prabhu. Yeah. Actually, this is a very challenge. This is one of the most challenging aspects, challenging questions when it comes to answer in an ISKCON scenario. Because yeah, I usually speak very boldly and fearlessly on this topic, although it is not been allowed. But still, yeah, I do speak because what has been present in the scriptures, especially by our Acharya Bhaktivinoda Thakur, is that we need to understand on this topic there are two different opinions within our society. So, and I want to present both. I don't know if it's the proper day today. I was thinking of doing it someday, but we'll try to do something today, glimpse of that. So, one understanding the devotees present is that Jiva was with Krishna, okay, and then what? Then the Jiva fell down because he that he wanted to enjoy independent of Krishna, and then he fell down from the spiritual world, and he came here, and this is one understanding. Other understanding is that Jiva was actually, as per Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Jaiva Dharma, 32nd chapter, I think so. He says that it's all coming from Karan Sagar. There is a Karana ocean, and that is under the spiritual realm, not the spiritual world, but the spiritual realm. Okay. Now, Jiva, it says in the Bhagavad Gita as well that Aham Bija Prajapitaha. So, and where Lord says, I impregnate the material nature. The Supreme Lord impregnates the Prakriti where? In the Karan Sagar. And so the Jivas are impregnated there. So, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that the Jivas are coming from the Karan Sagar, and from there they can see the spiritual world. It's a spiritual realm. It's like a border. From there they can see the spiritual world as well, and from there they can see the material world as well. And that's where that is where the Jivas who develop the tendency to enjoy, they come down to the material world. Now the understanding what we can discuss on this hot topic sometimes later. I'm just presenting both the sides. One side was the understanding of the devotees say, the Acharya is also presented that with that. When when one gets qualified to enter the spiritual world, when he has developed prema bhakti, then he gets a spirit. He gets a body which is spiritualized. He gets a spiritual body there. Okay, and the body which one gets is not an ordinary body like us. What here is, it's a spiritual body, and it is like one of the associates of the Lord. Like we become associate of the Lord. So our body is also of a transcendental nature. So the argument which are presented is that it is not possible for when Jiva attains that nature of the transcendental abode, he cannot fall down to the spiritual from the spiritual world. And the examples given are that if a Jiva who attempts a prema bhakti, if he in the material world, if he attempts prema bhakti, and in the lap of Maya, if the Maya cannot capture him here in the material world, forget about Maya capturing him in the spiritual world. Another thing they say is that there is no Mahamaya there, and the nature of the Mahamaya is to keep them in the engrossed in the material world. And because Mahamaya cannot cross the Viraja Nadi, she has no access to the spiritual world. There is no question of Yoga Maya putting the Jivas down to the material world. It's the nature of Mahamaya, not the Yoga Maya. Yoga Maya always wants Jiva to come closer to Krishna. And there are so many other things. Hare Krishna. We can discuss sometimes later. Because I have to complete my portion. We can discuss on and on this topic. So these are both the sides which are there. Probably it is better if you can present some writings of the acharyas and from both the sides, and we can go and discuss on this topic sometimes later. We'll